2018. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Amy, if you do a roll call to establish a quorum.
Supervisor John Stavenus.
Here.
Supervisor Linda Waite.
Here.
Chairman Dan Wolfle.
Here.
Supervisor Chuck Tice.
Here.
Supervisor Tony Haynes.
Here.
All right, next on our agenda is the meet and greet. We'll reverse order. How about that, Amy?
Sounds good. Amy Fleck, Clerk Treasurer, County Road P.
Tony Haynes, Town Supervisor, Matthew Road.
Chuck Tice, Supervisor, Bay Shore.
Dan Wolfle, Town Chairman, Park Road.
Linda Waite, Supervisor, Bluff Court.
John Stavenus, Supervisor, Whitefish Bay Road.
Dale Vogel, not a supervisor.
That's good.
Would you like to be?
Jim Noah, President.
Gary Londo, resident.
Jean Tice, resident. Kimberly Danielle, resident.
John Neal, Whitefish Bay Road.
Ivy Chapman, Glidden Drive.
Okay, before we get into public participation, I would like to set some rules of order for that. Last month, during public participation portion of the meeting, an individual took advantage of the opportunity to speak to town issues and proceeded to use the time frame for personal attacks. Public participation is not a requirement of any town meeting. There is no law or regulation that requires that any individual be given the opportunity to speak during our town board meetings. This is a privilege that as town chairman and the town board, we would prefer to allow. In the future, during public comment, any use of derogatory terms, personal attacks, or name calling of public officials will not be tolerated. Anyone violating these rules will be interrupted and informed that their public comment period has ended. With that as a backdrop, if anyone has any comments they'd like to talk to that's not on the agenda, I would be willing to hear them now. John?
Amazing how you guys duck and cover underneath an attorney. Just amazes me. There is no personal attacks.
John, you're out of order. Boy, oh boy. All right, let's move on to adopting the agenda. Was the agenda properly noticed, Amy?
The agenda has been properly noticed.
All right, I would need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Move that we adopt the agenda for January 15th, 2018.
Second.
Motion by Chuck, second by Tony to adopt the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of minutes, Board of Supervisors meeting December 18th.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by John, second by Chuck to approve the minutes of the Board of Supervisors meeting December 18th, 2017. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Carries. Pending business. You have one sheet in your packet, which is an update based on Chuck's suggestion from last month that we add the Sturgeon Bay Visitor Center, which we have done, and we have given that responsibility to Chuck. So that is out there, and we've updated it, and it's more for your reference than anything else. All right. Next item is the agenda. On the agenda is the newsletter, and that, I think, is going to be started by Linda and Amy. I don't know who wants to tackle that topic.
I will. Okay, if you read the Sevastopol Community column in the Door County Advocate last Saturday, I did make a point to solicit any comments from any of our residents on a topic of local government that you might be interested in or wanted to know more about. So at least that's a start. And I'm thinking that Amy and I could get together some afternoon or morning and go over some items, maybe bring some topics and run it past the board maybe the next meeting. And if the board, any of the board members have a topic that they would specifically like to address, to let us know. Were you anticipating an article from each of the board members?
When I passed that off to you, I think there were 2 or 3 topics that I had in there, and I don't frankly recall what they were. So I guess it really depended on
Okay,
what the board might be interested in doing.
all right.
Why don't we see what you have for a starter list and add that, those items that I had, and we can discuss them next month and get the input from whomever in terms of what's up.
Yep, and I'll pull my notes and also on the cost too, so that we have at least a cost estimate and number of copies and how we're going to proceed to catch those people that do not have a mailbox, depending on our time frame.
Okay, sounds good. Amy, you add anything to that?
There was a suggestion that we add some different topics to it, so I'll get together with Linda and then we'll bring it back next month.
All right, that sounds fine. All right, next thing is the Gundrum Winery. For those of you who haven't heard, the winery was approved at the recent Board of Adjustment meeting, which I attended, as well as Linda. There was pretty much a 50-50 mix of people both for and against the project. It was approved by the Board of Adjustment with a number of conditions. I have a copy of their letter back to the Gundrums, and I just thought for the benefit of those that are interested, I would highlight the significant or maybe different conditions that were placed on them with their business. The first one is hours of operation from 10 until 6 p.m. There were people there at the hearing that were concerned about after hours and the activity in basically a rural neighborhood. So the BOA set the hours from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. They did agree that access to the property has to occur off of County Highway P. Outdoor lighting, it will be down focused, so there will not be a aura of light cast from the property. There will be no heated, cooked, or prepared food, so they're not going to become a commercial kitchen where they start serving meals, et cetera, and change the design of the winery. They will be required to do vegetative screening on both sides of the property and install a fence to protect the view of the residential properties that adjoin it on County Trunk P. Then there's typical things about landscaping and water runoff, et cetera. The other thing that I thought was of interest was there was a concern expressed by the neighbors that there would be wedding parties, bridal parties, you name it, at the property. And the BOA agreed to eliminate the temporary use segment of the county zoning ordinance, which means typically in a venture something like this, they could have 10 times during the year where they could host some type of party that would be outside the normal hours, a wedding or whatever it might be. Both the Gundrums said they had no intentions of doing that, and the BOA backed that up by limiting their ability to do that. So it will be strictly a winery. And lastly, to address the issue of safety, the concern for safety, they put a condition in that the owners had to meet with the Department of Transportation to find out whether or not there should be turn lanes or deceleration or acceleration lanes, and that they need to get back with the DOT and implement these before the winery is open to the public. So don't know the extent of that, but they've set the ground rules to try and reduce the amount of safety concerns that were expressed by the neighbors. So they will undoubtedly break ground sometime this spring. That's, I believe, their intention. So we'll see what happens as it moves on.
Is that fence small enough to keep the chickens out?
The chickens were, somebody fenced it in. I don't know if it was the owners or the Gundrums, but somebody did put up a fence for the chickens.
Oh, good, because that was
So-
always a big concern.
It was. That came up at the meeting, I think, too, but it is fenced in, so.
Chickens were eating a lot of grapes.
Interesting. Okay. Also today, I attended the meeting of the Land Use Committee on the floodplain, and this was pretty good information. It affects some of the residents in our town. And what's happening, and I'll try and give you a brief recap, is that FEMA, which you're all familiar with, I believe, is mandating changes to correct or re-identify problem areas in Door County. For the most part, we do not have a lot of properties in our town. The land use office expects there to be approximately 120 properties that are affected throughout the county. So obviously, we won't have a lot. We do have some people that are affected in the Bayshore Little Harbor area, from the best information I was able to glean from the meeting. FEMA underwrites flood insurance that is sold by individual companies. Flood insurance is voluntary, and flood insurance is not part of your homeowner's coverage. Flood insurance may be required if you have a mortgage by your lender, but you are not required by law to take out more than what would cover your existing mortgage or what your lender would require. However, if you don't cover more than your mortgage and there was a flood, of course, you would not be covered for your home. You can shop flood insurance just like you would with getting a quote for a car. Any company can provide it. And FEMA has a program where you can get coverage depending on grandfathered circumstances, where you can obtain initial flood insurance for less than a normal cost, but eventually the cost ramps up to the current premium. The higher the elevation you have on your property in the floodplain area, the less expensive your premium is for coverage. The new floodplain area, which has been created for Door County, is called the VE, Victor Edward Zone, which stands for the Velocity Zone. And it represents a coastal area, the coastal areas, excuse me, which is basically the shoreline of Lake Michigan and the Bay of Green Bay, which has waves of greater than 3 feet in height. FEMA is also, in this case, including 3 Door County lakes in this floodplain effort. And of course, Clark Lake is the one that falls into our town. They are doing Europe Lake and Kangaroo Lake as well. FEMA will supply the county new floodplain maps. Right now, they only have draft maps of the areas that they are concerned with. And in approximately, they're anticipating 18 to 24 months, the new maps will reach what they call a preliminary stage. And when they reach the preliminary stage, FEMA will conduct an open house meeting to show everyone the maps, and exactly you'll know where you stand with respect to the floodplain. After this happens, a homeowner would have a 30-day window to appeal the map as to whether or not it's accurate. You'd have to hire a private engineer, and you'd have to have him produce data that would show that FEMA's assessment of the map redistricting in your area was incorrect. Now here gets to be the interesting piece. If you are in one of these VE zones, there will be building restrictions that you would have to address before you could build. And some of those things, basically, almost all of those things revolve around building in a higher elevation. And essentially what they're telling us is that there will be homes that will be built on stilts in order to meet the elevation requirement. And that these homes that are built on stilts, if you've been to Florida, like some of the island areas down there, they'll have to have breakaway walls. So it'll kind of eliminate the ability for some of these people in some selected areas to literally have a basement, and conceivably you'll have a home built at grade on one side and the other, and in between you'll have a house that's on a raised platform to meet the requirements. And once these maps are done and all of this doesn't go into effect until all of this information I've shared with you takes effect in 18 to 24 months or more. And of course, you can't use fill to raise the building level before you build, so you're really stuck with the stilts, for lack of a better word. The Door County Land Use Department is the place to go if you have more questions. You can also go to the Door County Land Use website to find out more information. Or you can also go to the Door County Web Map portal, which is the one that has parcel information, tax information, assessment, etc. And you can see the current floodplain maps there. There are also hard copies at the Land Use Office. Or lastly, you can go on the internet to www.fema.gov/preliminary flood hazard data to view these maps online. Now, as I said, we have some in our town. I don't know the exact number. I've asked the land use department to tell us how many. We don't think it's going to be a large number. The land use department believes that those people that have been affected by this change have already received a notification from the land use department about the meeting that they conducted today. Now, the only people I saw at that meeting today were people from the lakeside. I didn't see anyone from the bayside. So, for the most intent purposes, it's going to be a minority of the town that's impacted. But I thought it was good information that they shared. It's a process that's going to take a couple years to evolve, but just be aware of what the impact might be if you had a vacant lot that was next to you and it was in this area. So,
Will there be any repercussions to people that already built on those properties?
no.
Are they going to have to do any remodeling or upgrading to meet the code?
From everything they shared with us, no, and you won't be required to take flood insurance, but they did go into the part that once the maps are done and FEMA has defined your area, you'll have an opportunity to sign up for flood insurance and at a reduced cost, which will then ramp up over time. If you don't take advantage of it at that time, there are some disadvantages to you as an individual, but you will not be required to do it. They think your insurance companies and your mortgage lenders are going to be the ones that are going to drive most of this because they want you to protect their investment. So, do you have a question, Leslie?
I did not venture out this morning to go to the meeting, but I'm wondering if Laddie was able to go and record it, and it will be available on www.doorbell.net/video
It is right.
or on the charter cable station, correct?
Yep, Laddie was there this morning and taped the whole thing. It was a 2 hour and 15-minute meeting. They had the DNR there, they had Representative Miles Winkler, our beloved Clark Lake engineer, and others that talked to this whole issue. So that's the best information I can share with you at the moment. There is also a meeting coming up on February 27th, which is going to talk to changes in public hearing and potentially conditional use. And I'm unable to make that meeting. I've asked Linda to attend, and John and perhaps Jim may want to attend from your planning committee, as I think this deals directly with the direction that you might have to take with future conditional use requests. So I just highlight that so that it doesn't get passed over. If you can attend, that'd be great. And Linda's going to go for sure, and then will give us a recap at the subsequent meeting. And Laddie, are you taping that too? Do you know?
Which one?
The conditional use hearing, the one on February 27th? What about?
I could.
5:30 PM.
Yeah, okay. I'll do it.
Okay. So that's all I can share with you on those things. Lastly, we have some things on property management, and I'm going to bring you up to speed on that. In the case of the Muscat property, which you all know across from the Mill Supper Club, Linda and I were together and contacted the sanitarian, John Teichler, who has sent a letter telling the owners that they are in violation of Door County code and that they have until April 6th in order to meet that code, or they will pursue further action. Further action, from what I understand, is a citation, and they will issue multiple citations as needed until the property is cleaned up. So it's still a work in progress, and I think it's been that way for 10 years, 12 years, longer, but we make little steps ahead. There are also in front of you, I had Amy copy out the 2 other letters from the Land Use Department that are going to people operating a business in their home. There's also a letter talking to our favorite individual regarding tents and junk piled in his front yard, and he has until mid-February, or early February, to answer that request before it goes to the Corporation Council. So I'm sure we'll have need to understand the conditional use if these people that are operating a business decide to come back to the town. So, any questions on any of that? All right. And we'll move on to new business. And the first item in there is the Resolution 01-2018 TB, which is a policy and procedure amendment to Resolution Number 7, 2004 TB, called an unexpected supervisor vacancy. This is a resolution that I am submitting to the board, and it says, whereas, whenever it is deemed necessary to update the policies and procedures which establish the guidelines for the operation of the Town Board of Supervisors, such recommendation shall be made by resolution and approved by the majority of the board. And whereas by recent action of the Board of Supervisors, it was determined to amend the current policy and procedures by changing the following, and the following is unexpected supervisor vacancy. If a vacancy occurs, the position should be advertised with the intent of soliciting individuals wishing to be considered for appointment to the office of supervisor. All potential candidates would be interviewed by those eligible to participate in such selection process, with the selection and appointment on a majority vote of the total members participating. Now therefore be it resolved that the aforementioned becomes the policy and procedure of the town board, and to be followed in such vacant supervisory positions, submitted by me. Any questions with respect to that amendment? Yes.
It would be understood that that appointment would be to fill out the term
An
of
unexpired term.
whatever, right, unexpired term.
Yes, thank you.
The only question I'd have is, interviewed by those eligible to participate. Are you, I would assume you mean the board, or?
The town board is what it had been in the past, so I'm assuming we would stay with the same process. I could certainly clarify that if that,
That's what I would say is, change that maybe to town board, because
that's fine.
if you have some, somebody else might say, I want to sit in on the meeting.
All right. All right. All potential candidates would be interviewed by, and we'll insert the town board. Who will participate in the selection process. Amy, have you got that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other suggestions or changes? If not, a motion to approve would be in order.
Make a motion that we approve Resolution 01-2018 TB, Policies and Procedures Amendment, unexpected supervisor vacancy.
I'll second that.
Motion by Chuck, second by Tony, to approve Resolution 01-2018 TB. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. All right, the next item is on the Wisconsin Towns Association 2018 district meeting. If you've read the Wisconsin Towns Association newsletter, you know that they have periodic meetings. In this case, there is one in our neck of the woods at the Mark, which is between Green Bay and Appleton. And on Friday the 23rd, they will be doing Board of Review certification training. And if we're correct, someone from the board absolutely has to go, and if more would like to go, the better. Amy would send in the check for us to participate. And as you know, we need to have someone currently through training as we sit down for the Board of Review in June. And I think there's some interest on your behalf, Linda?
I definitely plan to go unless weather would dictate otherwise, but it's a great opportunity to socialize and bounce ideas from other Wisconsin Towns Association officers and municipalities and that. I'm pretty certain that the UW Extension will also offer either an online version later in the year for whoever might want to participate that way. Do I need approval to issue a check for $60?
No, we will have the town do that, and I'm going to see if I can join you in that.
I'll be happy to drive if anybody wants to join me. So,
The advantages of not having to do it over the internet or in that environment, I think, are obvious. So, and besides, you get coffee and rolls, what could go wrong?
Yeah.
So if somebody, I think my intentions are to try and do that with Linda. If anyone else wants to attend, let her know so that she can prepay it, because I think the fee goes up after the fact a little bit,
If it's 10 days beforehand.
10 days before.
What
Okay.
date were you going?
it is February 23rd.
It's a
It's
Friday.
at the Mark in De Pere, so we would probably need to leave by 7 a.m. And you can send in at least one registration,
Yeah.
please.
Will do.
I've attended these meetings previous. It's a good opportunity. You get to meet the WPA attorneys. If you have any questions, specific questions, they're willing to sit down and talk to you. They do have public comment period. And noting the two main subjects of the meeting this year are the broadband fundamentals and the new mining laws in Wisconsin. So mining doesn't affect us too much up here. The big deal was the frac sand mining in the south. But broadband is definitely a problem up here, and there should be some good information coming out.
Okay, good enough. All right, next item is drawing for the ballot order. This is when we have multiple people running for office. They have a very sophisticated process to decide whose name goes on the ballot first. And Amy, please explain in great detail exactly what it is you're doing here, how many people's names, et cetera.
We have 3 candidates up for 2 seats, and each candidate has a piece of paper in this little hole, and Laddie's going to choose the order.
I gotta, stay where you are, I gotta get this on camera for legal purposes. Okay. I'm choosing the first one?
Correct.
Okay.
Kim Daniel?
I have to choose the second?
Her, yes.
Only two
You don't have to choose the third, Laddie.
I don't? You
No.
sure?
Thank you. And then John Stavinus, and then the third one will be Jim Nellen.
Okay. Felt like door number 1, 2, or 3. Great, thank you, Amy. Thanks, Laddie. Okay, financial reports. You have before you the financial report as of December 31st, recapping all of last year. You also have the transaction list by date and the budget versus actual for the full year, January through December 2017. If there are any questions on any of that information. Ms. Wade?
Yes, looking at our interest rates, obviously not what we were earning 10 years ago, but they're climbing up gradually. If you look at our local bank, we're collecting interest 0.10, 1.0, or 0.59. Anyway, if you look at the local government, the state pool, they are currently paying 1.09%, which is almost twice as much as what our local bank is paying. We have in our designated funds, and I don't anticipate that we would be using a large portion of that, but is there, what are your thoughts on parking, say, $300,000 from our local bank into the state pool and collecting twice as much interest.
Sounds like a bad idea, don't you think?
No.
Hey, I'm for it if I'm not mistaken. We did a CD, which we had never done
Yeah.
before last year.
The CD, Amy, what was the interest rate on our CD? 0.8?
0.80.
0.80, and I mean, that's even less than the 1.9. And historically, the government pool has almost always been higher than our local banks. So, yes, you're gonna have to pay a wire fee, so maybe $15 for a wire fee.
15 bucks.
Out and back, but,
Randy's higher than that. Randy's higher than that.
oh, okay. But like I said, if we're not gonna use that, you
No,
know,
I think it's-
200,000, 300,000 for 6 months, 12 months, why would we not wanna?
Well, we got $152 in there now.
And you opened that up, if I recall.
We opened that up because,
Why did we
I
open that
want to
up?
say when we borrowed for the building, if it was somehow connected, that we
don't
used
remember.
that as our dispersing agent or something like that.
That might have been.
Right.
No,
So
I
that's
haven't.
why we had it, and, you know, it is on our list of approved financial institutions or whatever, but just a thought, if Amy wanted to maybe calc out the interest, see what the wire transfer fees are, and see if we would come out ahead.
Do you know if it's a sliding scale, as in the more you put in, the higher the rate?
That could be as well.
I can contact them.
Okay.
And
When you have time.
Yep.
Thank you.
I think it makes
Sounds like a
sense.
very good idea.
Any other comments? Okay. We have the treasurer's report before we move on.
Last week, we made out the settlement checks, so Sevastopol School, Sturgeon Bay School, Sevastopol Sanitary District, MWTC, and the county were paid for the December portion of the taxes. The W-2s and 1099s were completed and mailed out last week. We paid our first quarter for our fire protection. We received our first quarter general transportation aids, and we will be holding a primary election.
Okay. Any comments from anyone? Otherwise, a motion to approve the financial reports, please.
I will move to approve the financial report for December 2017.
Second.
Motion by Linda, second by Chuck to approve financial reports 2017. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next would be the approval of vouchers, bills, and claims. Did everybody have a chance to sign that, Amy? It's all done?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers, bills, and claims.
Seconds.
Motion by John, second by Chuck to approve the vouchers, bills, and claims December 19th, 2017 through January 15, 2018. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, oral committee or commission reports minutes. And I don't believe we have any minutes. Does anyone? I take it back. Chuck asked us to send out the Door County Tourism Executive Committee minutes. Chuck, did you want to take a minute?
Last month, we were talking about the Airbnb problem with the rentals and the collection of taxes and so forth. I told you the minutes were very lengthy. I mean, we got a 9-page minutes here from the commission on the discussion as to how the tax would be collected, how it would be dispersed. And what it all boils down to is nobody really knows yet. Representative Kitchens is asking the committee to come up with some ideas that we think would satisfy our data collection and proper distribution of the tax to the proper municipalities. And then he would move forward to try to get some corrections in the bill to make it work. So that's where it stands right now. Nothing has happened as of the date, so our next committee meeting is going to be next Thursday, or this coming Thursday, rather. Maybe I'll find out a little more at that meeting.
Is Wisconsin Towns Association taking up this at all?
No.
They don't want to be part or concerned at all with respect to this? It just seems like it would be something that they would,
It might be something that would interest them. I don't believe anybody's really asked or discussed it with them at all, but it's a possibility.
I mean, as you read through the newsletter, they actively work on trying to fix things that got pretty well screwed up, whether intentionally or otherwise. So it might not be a bad idea to see if somebody would go back and circle the wagons with them from reading it, like you said. I mean, Vandercastle's comment, it's just a mess. You know, it's not good news. So, huge piece of income that we get that we certainly do not want to be without.
They jumped the gun before all the infrastructure was put into place, I believe. And the computer programming and that for collecting data and reporting everything, our commission has been building this hardware, you know, piece by piece in order to make it work. We've spent thousands of dollars in developing it. And Door County is the model for the rest of the state. I mean, everybody keeps calling us, asking us how it works, and adding their 2 cents worth. What, you know, can we tweak our hardware to make it do something they would like? And I mean, we're at the point now where we may be selling hardware to other communities to get the program running. But the Airbnb deal, where all of these marketing agents sign up with the state, they didn't know where, day one, how to put this all together. And we're collecting from each renter or property, how many nights were they available, how many rooms were available, how many rooms were filled, the going rate. I mean, a lot of this is kept confidential, but when it's all put together, you get a map of what's going on in the county, and we've got a tremendous amount of data put together. We can tell you where the majority of the tourists are coming from, how long they're going to stay here, how they found out about us, with all the new mobile devices and apps and everything now. I mean, there's constant talk between individuals that all comes back, and you know, Twitter, and we're just collecting tons and tons of information. It really helps out. We know, you know, we've got hot spots now. We know where to market. You know, the majority of people coming out of Milwaukee, Chicago, Minneapolis, that's where you're going to spend your tax dollar, your advertising dollars. So we need that information to keep going at the way we are. So it's just going to have to be put back together, and hopefully Rep. Kitchens can help us out there.
When is the next Wisconsin Towns Association meeting, unit
The
meeting?
unit meeting?
February.
Would you think that might be an opportunity to have, I mean, that crosses the boundaries of every town in the county, to raise that issue to them? And I don't know.
The town of Sturgeon Bay is the host, and they don't have a whole lot of rentals in their town. And the host gets to pick the town.
Yeah,
I do have
Sure,
some
go
comments
ahead.
on that. For the audience, we're talking about room tax collections on the lodging industry and Airbnb and vacation rentals by owners. Sometimes it's hard to track to be sure that they are paying their proper room tax. And as I mentioned to Supervisor Tice, I did go to the statutes on this. So an Airbnb where the owner contracts with someone else to do all of the paperwork. You're gonna find my rentals, you're gonna do all the filing, you're gonna collect and remit back to me. I looked at the statutes, it's very clear. Persons who are subject to room tax shall, it doesn't say may, it says shall register with the state, and failure is a misdemeanor, subject to penalties, interest, fines, et cetera, et cetera. It also says that the marketplace, which would be the Airbnb or vacation rental by owner, whoever the operator of this is required to notify the owner that it has collected and forwarded taxes. So if they're required to notify the owner, this is what we collected for you, why can't the owner supply the municipality so that we know that this Airbnb is in Sevastopol and not another 54235 zip code? That was the problem. They were saying, oh, everybody's going to report under 54235. Well, parts of Jacksonport are 54235, town of Sturgeon Bay, et cetera, et cetera. We also have a 4-digit extension available on our zip code, and maybe that's something that the report needs to include so that I know my 4-digit extension is 8198. I'm sure if you plug it in, it's going to pop up, town of Sevastopol. So, you know, we need to get those marketing agents on board. They have to follow the rules just like everybody else. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So maybe we can talk about that on Thursday with the commission, but the rules are there.
Well, whatever we hopefully can do to make sure we don't lose that revenue stream, because
Right.
it is paying for this, paying for this building. So, any other oral committee reports? Okay, license and permits. You have all the information from our friends at the zoning office and from Safe Built, our building inspector, in there for your review. No chicken coop this month. All right. Next would be the county board recap from District 14 Supervisor Linda Wade.
I don't have too much at the county level, just that on January 18th, Thursday, January 18th, from 4 to 6 p.m. is the open house for the new Door County Community Center / Emergency Services Building, and everybody is invited to check out that beautiful restored, partially restored old highway shop on 14th Avenue.
What are the hours? Do you know?
4 to 6 p.m.
4 to 6.
4 to
Okay.
6 p.m., Thursday, January 18th. Check it out. Yeah, if you're not sure of what the community center offers, there's all there's so many departments that are connected. It's anywhere from health and wellness to financial planning to helping you with your taxes, disability, exercise. That center will cover a multitude of items for everybody. The county is getting a new phone system, which will be installed in all of the county buildings. And then over the weekend, this has nothing to do with the, well, it does have something to do with the county. If you watch Discover Wisconsin, I think it was Saturday night or Sunday night, they had several Door County locations on there. I know Door County Coffee was one, showed the roasting process and all that. And then also the Washington Island lavender fields. So it's always great to see our local neighborhood being promoted on TV. Anyway, the next county board meeting is January 23rd at 9 a.m. And if you have any problems with your roads or ice or anything like that,
Call you?
call the chairman or any of the town board members, correct?
Correct.
Yep, just let us know.
We've heard from a few people.
Right. And then I saw this in the Peninsula Pulse, and this was a very dear friend of our chairman. It was Steve Ranke. He passed away last fall, last summer.
January 3rd of 2017.
Mm-hmm. He was, nobody asked him to do this, but when we had our sesquicentennial in 2009, he came in a few days later with 4 DVDs full of photos. We had never thought to contract a photographer for our sesquicentennial celebration. So here comes Steve with these 4 DVDs and just probably 1,000 photos from our sesquicentennial. So that's why I remember Steve. But anyway, he is a very accomplished photographer, and his work is on display at the Miller Art Gallery.
I was there.
From now on.
I was
Did you
there
check
for
it
the.
out?
I was there for the opening.
Okay.
And it's upstairs on the second floor, and they have maybe, I don't know, 25 or so prints of his that are mostly about the size of the pictures over on that wall. It's like 16 by 20 or so. And his focal point for the Maritime Museum was obviously maritime-related stuff, and so he spent a lot of time on the 1,000-foot ships, the base ship. He's got pictures from the gantry. They gave him access to a lot of different things. He was on the Coast Guard cutter Mackinac, and also the one in multiples. So he had a lot of access. He took a lot of photos. They're on display. It's a very cool exhibit. Will only take a few minutes to see it, but very impressive stuff. So it's just a year ago that he passed away. So thank you, Linda.
Yep, you're welcome.
Okay. As we wind down here, breaking the record for the shortest meeting for the new year, we'll go through correspondence. You have all of this in front of you. Wisconsin Municipal Clerks Association, we paid our dues so that we can have our clerk be a member. I asked Amy to include in here all the reports that are generated by the Real Property Department on taxes by municipality. And if you look through it, it breaks it down by resident and non-resident, number of parcels, the percent of taxes paid by each group for each town throughout the county. Gives us our parcel count for improved and unimproved. And the one large sheet that's in there, the 14-inch spreadsheet, gives you the tax rate from 2013 through 2017 for all the municipalities in Door County, and gives you the mill rate. So in the case of, for those of you who don't remember having paid your tax bill, the town with the Sevastopol School District was $10.26 per thousand, and Sevastopol with the Sturgeon Bay School District was $15.37. And when you look down the list, I would say, with the exception of the Sturgeon Bay School District, we are well within or below the majority of municipalities in the county. So there for your reference, if someone would like to know. As far as real estate taxes, 58% of the taxes are paid by residents, and 42% of our taxes are paid by non-residents, summer, tourists, whatever. So that information's in there. There's also a copy of a flyer on Dunes Lake. As we put the parking lot down there, and it talks about, this is the signage that's going up down there, talking about the groups that paid to do the initial dredging in that particular area. So it's, you can see that. We also received a donation of $100 from the Nature Conservancy, which was unexpected, but grateful for providing fire protection for their properties. You also have the listing of those permitted properties for tax collection. And the best news I think I've seen here is the lab report from the Wisconsin Laboratory of Hygiene saying that our water is just fine. So feel free to get a drink on your way out. No problems at all.
Go back to the property, the real tax. You had requested several months ago that we try to identify the location of some of these places.
Yes, to the sheriff.
We do include the address in there now, so
Right.
you should be able to
Pick out who they
pick
are.
out who they are.
Yep. And I got the listing as well from those. So that was a nice change, because you don't know who a lot of these places are until you actually drive by them. So that was a nice addition. Thank you. And we received, excuse me, couldn't get that out. Thank you. As Amy mentioned, we received some funds from the state, which we're very kind to accept. Our general transportation aids are up this year from last year. I think $16,000, if my memory serves me right. And that is everything in correspondence. So, announcements, for next month. Our meeting will be on Monday, February 19th. The primary election is February 20th. The polls are open from 7 to 8 p.m. Spring election, which is our town supervisors here, will be April 3rd. Again, the polls are open from 7 to 8. And our annual town board meeting is April 17th. And any agendas for next month other than the newsletter that anybody has on their mind?
I have Katie coming to look at the historical files for the mural.
Okay.
She's going to come possibly on Thursday.
Great, I was meant to ask about that and I forgot.
Do I need to be here?
I was going to coordinate some time with you if you had some.
Okay. Anything else?
Dan?
Yes.
The League of Women Voters is planning to have a forum for the candidates for the supervisor position, but they have not set a date yet. They'll have it here, assuming it's available, and it'll be recorded.
Okay. Do you have any idea on their timing at all, Laddie, in terms of what month?
I talked to Shirley today, but she's trying to figure out snow dates and availability dates, and I don't know, unfortunately, yet.
Okay, well, that's good news. Keep us abreast of that. All right, next item of business would be to adjourn.
Also move.
Second.
Motion by John, second by Chuck to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.